I was working at the film studio when I learned that another film was being prepared for the novel of the writer Ismail Kadare entitled The General of the Dead Army, and the direction of this film had been taken over by the long-known director, Dh.Anagnosti. It made me curious about the realization of this fiction due to the fact that for this well-received novel of socialist realism, 2 other films were made. A television film by the talented director Vladimir Privty, and a Franco-Italian fiction by Luciano Tivoli. Kadare's novel. But they had completely different views and conceptions in the making of the film. This made it interesting for the Albanian public. I met Dh.Anagnosti by chance in the yard and I asked what the new perspective would bring with the General, since 2 films had been made before. Dh.Anagnosti answered me a little bit annoyed and maybe convinced by my direct question and said briefly that he will do his reading of the novel of Qafzezi. Came the expected day of the premiere of the film in question, which took place in one of the halls of the pyramid. The film was held very professionally. The actresses were chosen in accordance with the character of the roles. Where Bujaleiko stood out in the role of the General and Gulielm Radoja in the role of the priest and Rosa Anagnosti in the role of the old woman Nice. The interpretation of these roles with a little theatricality, in general, was excellent. Unfortunately, it was just an ordinary reading of the novel, as Anagnosti himself expressed when I asked him. The film by director Dh.Anagnosti was below the level of the novel and this disillusioned the audience a little. A film based on a well-known novel must rise above the level of the work. Try to figuratively give new developments on what the author wanted to highlight, in this case Ismail Kadare, which is difficult to translate into a film. And this is achieved through the fantasy and enthusiasm of the director who he makes a work with passion. Lacking the inspiration of simply reading the novel with the eye of the camera. The work falls into mediocrity and unwittingly lowers the value of the novel itself. This is where my criticism was focused after the premiere of this film. A director of Dh.Anagnosti's caliber should not have rushed to enter such a job when 2 other films, Albanian and foreign, had been made before him. When it doesn't come out can't over the work. And it doesn't reveal new things or a new point of view that at first glance would seem controversial with the author. And a functional fantasy that would raise the values of the film while giving it a space and breathing, which maybe it didn't give simple reading. There you also gave the idea of how functional creative fantasy would work without leaving the drama of the work. For example, I would start the film where Dh.Anagnosti was putting the lock on him, where he would close the film by taking his breath away. Desperate coffins assembled with so much effort. And suddenly the coffins would be opened and from there the skeleton soldiers would come out with their skeleton colonel at the head ready for a second invasion rematch. This absurdity would freeze the values of the novel Qafzezi, the General of the Dead Army, but, unfortunately, in Tako's film, we again saw graves being opened, as well as the drama and the curses of the old woman niece, who raped her daughter. Sequences worn out, and that did not arouse curiosity, because they talk for a weak reading of the novel, and of course that would lead to the making of a mediocre film.